Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Hello, good evening, and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast brought to you by AMS Media. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and it's just a short edition today, but it's an edition that I promised you guys during the review of the victory over Liverpool. So here I am. We're going to be I'm going to be sharing my thoughts, I guess, on Mikel Arteta's post-match comments, which have got a lot of press. The comments seem to have impressed lots of Arsenal fans, and rightly so, in my opinion. Mikel Arteta, what he does really, really well, in my opinion, is that he communicates, is that he is clear. Everything he says is very deliberate. There is no beating around the bush with Mikel Arteta for me. Now, I know he's done the odd thing that every manager does where he's declined to sort of comment on situations and he's kind of just sidestepped it, but it's a very blunt sidestep, isn't it, when he does that? For example, when talking about Mesut Ozil or when talking about Matteo Guendouzi, he just says the situation hasn't changed. He shuts the thing down immediately, and that's what we get from Mikel Arteta. We get honest, and we get, based on yesterday, really open communication, and that's something as a fan that I can really, really get on board with. One of my biggest issues probably with Unai Emery was the fact that the communication wasn't there. And I understand there was a language barrier, and I've said this time and time again, that is no fault of his own. But there should have been a translator there, because when you can communicate clearly with your supporters, it is so much easier for them to get on board with what you're doing. Even if they disagree with decisions, even if they think they know better, which we all do from time to time, just having that clear explanation on various points can go a real long way in helping people to understand why you do things, etc., etc. So Mikel Arteta's comments yesterday were refreshing, and he spoke to Sky Sports after the game against Liverpool, and he said it very, very clearly. He said the gap between the two teams is massive. It is absolutely huge. And he expressed his concern about having the transfer funds available to go on and push Arsenal to be as close to the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City as possible. He spoke about the fact that the level was closed in terms of the attitude and the desire to win, and that wasn't there within the group beforehand. And he was absolutely right to make those points. But what do Mikel Arteta's comments mean for the supporters, for the club? For me, Mikel Arteta has made it very, very clear very early on in his Arsenal tenure that he wants funds. He knows what he wants. He knows that the team needs improvement in certain areas. I'm not denying that Unai Emery, was in that position as well. I'm sure he understood where the shortcomings were better than anyone. But Mikel Arteta has gone public. He's made it clear that the funds are needed, and he's almost hinted, hasn't he, that in terms of improving their attitude, in terms of improving the work rate, the desire, well, we're on that path already. Within 6 months, 7 months, he's managed to get us on the right path in terms of those things already. But to then go that next step further, we need to improve the team. And he's put a hell of a lot of pressure on the Arsenal board, which I love. I love to see it because, going back to previous management, again, Arsene Wenger was somebody who never outed the board, never turned up the heat on them, never put the pressure on them. And in many ways, that proved to be his downfall, because a lot of the displeasure, the unhappiness towards the way Arsenal were performing on the pitch was directed at Arsene Wenger. But in actual fact, it probably should have been directed in the board's sort of direction. And so it is refreshing to see a manager do that. What does those comments tell me about Mikel Arteta as a coach in terms of his ambition? Tells me everything I need to know, and that is that this is someone driven, somebody determined, and somebody keen to make a real impression. Now, Mikel Arteta could have waited. Mikel Arteta could have taken easier jobs than this one. Perhaps not a bigger job for his first game, because Arsenal are first role, because Arsenal are a huge football club. But in terms of the difficulty that he was going to face when he come here, I don't even think he realized how bad it would be, but it is one hell of a task he's got on his hands. And, fingers crossed that he's given the tools that he needs in order to make the improvements. And at the same time, prove himself as a coach. He said it, in his interview. It was an interview with Astro Sports, actually. I don't know if any of you have seen that. It's on YouTube. One of the post-match interviews, and he said he's got it all to do still as a coach. So he knows that. He knows where he wants to be. He knows where he wants to get to. But I just love the openness and the honesty with which he spoke after that game, and he put the pressure on the board. Now it's over to the board to do what they have to do what they can, of course, to make sure that Arsenal have the tools they need in order for Mikel Arteta to take this team forward. Have we improved? I think Mikel Arteta was absolutely spot on when he said that we've improved in terms of our attitude, in terms of our desire, in terms of our togetherness. I don't think anybody can question that. Have we improved a great deal as a football team, though? That's up for debate still. And actually, I don't believe that the style and the brand of football that we're seeing at the moment from Mikel Arteta's side is the style that he necessarily wants to play. But where he deserves credit is that he's been pragmatic in the sense of he's understood what our limitations are and what we need to do to try and close the gap and get as many positive results as we can. And the results have been better. There's no doubt about that. Arsenal were really resolute yesterday, really resilient, really strong. Yeah, we were a bit fortunate as well. Liverpool missing some opportunities. The incident where Emi Martinez smashed the ball against Roberto Firmino and it came off the foot of the post. There is an element of fortune to that. But like I always say, if you allow the opposition to have 24 attempts or whatever it was on goal, which is 21 more than we did, incidentally, then you are going to have to ride your luck a little bit. Arsenal pounced on a couple of really uncharacteristic Liverpool mistakes, but you still got to take those opportunities when they come along. So credit to everybody. But yeah, I just wanted to do this short, brief little video / podcast in order to just share my thoughts on Mikel Arteta's comments, because I thought they were refreshing. It was an interview that I really, really enjoyed watching. I love hearing that openness, hearing that honesty. He never really crossed the boundary of what you should as a manager, but he also made it clear. He indirectly sort of told the fans that he's got a concern about the finances. He put the pressure on the board. He's handled it perfectly for me, and he's applied the pressure in all the right places whilst keeping the fans in the loop, which, of course, from our perspective is really, really important. Let's have a look at some of your live comments. Orlando Aguiar says, love the channel, mate. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Omar says it's good that Arteta is calling out the board because they need to back him. Absolutely, they really, really do. I understand that the situation is a strange one given the times we're living in, the global pandemic, what impact that's had on the club's finances. I get all of that. Another potential season away from the another season away from the Champions League. It could potentially turn into a season where we don't even have Europa League football, and there are financial implications to that as well. So there's lots and lots and lots going on at Arsenal Football Club, but Arsenal have to find a way of backing this man. And I'm not saying give him a £250 million war chest, because we know that's not realistic. But if a player becomes available that Mikel Arteta believes can improve this team instantly, the club have to back him. And if that means jigging around some of the finances, maybe it means the Chronicles putting their hands in their pockets, because we understand that financial fair play rules are going to be relaxed for a little bit whilst we deal with the aftermath of the global pandemic. So lots to take into consideration. But what Mikel Arteta has done is he's sown the seeds, hasn't he, in terms of the pressure will now be probably applied on the club, not just from him and his staff, but the fans as well. And it's so important when trying to guide a team through a time of great difficulty that you have the fans on board. And for the most part, I think Mikel Arteta does have that. Not everybody's on board. There's still some who are not convinced, still some who believe we haven't improved at all, and still some who thought that the job was too big for him in the first place. I was one of those people at the beginning. when he did get appointed, I was sitting there going, why didn't we get Ancelotti? Why didn't we get Ancelotti? But now I'm okay with Mikel Arteta being in the job. And I've been really, really impressed by not just how we've improved tactically and in terms of our spirit and our attitude, but in terms of him and the way he comes across. He's someone I can really support and really, really get behind. Big hello to Danny, the GFP. How you doing, mate? Welcome back to the show. Big shout out to Arsenal Canada 04, who says Arteta is the man to take us back to the top. Fingers crossed, mate. Let's hope so. And Tommy O'Donoghue says the club have to take risks if they want to compete. Absolutely. The club have to take some risk in the transfer market and try. If they back Mikel Arteta and if they believe in Mikel Arteta, then trust his judgment. Give him what he needs. Help him out. And let's try and get Arsenal back to where they belong, which at first is going to be back in the Champions League. And then we can look at pushing on to compete for the major honours, which is where I, and I'm sure all of you believe this football club belongs, right at the very top of not just the English game, but the European game as well. Right, that brings me to the end of this very, very brief, short edition of the podcast. If you're watching us live at the moment, you can jump onto the Gooner Talk at 8:30 p.m. UK time. I'll be joining the guys there, and I'll be on LFC Day Trippers at 10 p.m. tonight as well. It's a Liverpool podcast, but we are talking Premier League in general, I believe, on this edition, and I'm very delighted to have been invited onto the show with some great panelists. So looking forward to that as well. Right, we'll be back very, very soon with more. We'll be bringing you a Manchester City preview that I'll be dropping on Friday morning. So stay tuned for that as well. Until next time, take care of yourselves and stay safe. Cheers.